Welcome to a completely ridiculous game of Nomad that we played on the ladder a few days ago. I'll go ahead and cast this game from the first person perspective. And right off the bat, we're realizing that our town center is going up after our enemies, who is just right next to us. So we're not in love with our position, but we'll scout the map a bit anyways. We're just chatting with our teammate Bell here about some civ combinations, specifically the Spanish and the Bengali. And we realize that there's another enemy right next to us. So we might go for a TC war game. We find a third enemy in the north here near our dock, and we'll just go ahead and wall that villager in and build our first house here. You can see that I'm a little bit of an over-clicker when I play, and that's one of the things I've been working on recently. Bell invites player 6 to join the action, and I plan to drop a town center on this player. But I then realize it is P1, and you really can't TC drop the Persians because it just won't work. We're planning to try not to allow player 1 to get too much food because I can't drop town centers on the Persians. But the Persians will really always be okay just because of how many extra resources they have at the start of the game. They almost never will have to go idle in terms of producing villagers from their town center. We just keep scouting the map. And since we know we're going for TC wars, there's not too much reason to scout the water, so I'm looking for more town center positions in the north before deploying the sheep to scout the shoreline. As the Malians, we also don't have to take a boar too early, and player 1 looks like he brings in that first boar successfully, but we'll just go ahead and look around for our first boar as well. We'll grab our first boar and just go ahead and bring it in here, trying to slow it down as best we can with the palisade wall tricks. It's really not a perfect lure, but it gets the job done, and the town center war really isn't an economic play anyway, so I'm not too worried. When you are going for a TC war, you'll generally only need one boar, because you're not planning on producing that many villagers or ever going up to the next stage. We do need to get a few more vills back onto wood, but right now we're just making sure the town center doesn't go idle. Once we have 4 or 5 fish, those fishing ships will also be able to fund our entire villager production, and we just won't need any more on food unless we lose those fish. If you're going for a town center war and you never lose your fish, it's just a really nice game. And I'm warning my team that if I were in player 1's position, I would town center drop one of them. P1 knows that I'm pinched between him and one of his allies, so I'll really never be in a position to succeed this game. But player 6 and player 8 are in carry positions, so player 1 really should try to hit one of them instead of attacking me. I'm letting my team know that I believe that will happen as well, and player 7 just tries to kill my dock villager, but we get the wall down and finish that up. We're really just trying to produce fishing ships and villagers as consistently as possible here, and we'll need a house at this stage as well, but it does look like we might get housed for a minute here, and I should probably just go ahead and get loom at this point. There's some free advice from my teammates and all of you that if you are getting TC dropped, the absolute best response is fast feudal archers. You want to get archers out because they'll prevent the enemy from being able to step forward and continue to TC drop you. Archers also, because they can hit and run against villagers, will always take perfectly efficient fights. P7 is really walling in our ville there, and I'm not sure why he needs to do that. We'll now just put all of our villagers onto wood, and we seem to be in a position where we won't need to do anything else but collect wood and add fishing ships, and we should be able to go for the town center war off this style of play. I'm just trying to build a nice wall around my base and set this area up so that once I do set up my wood line and delete my TC within this area, I'll be in a position to protect these villagers. I like to get loom when I'm TC warring because I like to hard confirm the position of the enemy's TC, and I get these arrows shot at me, But that's really totally fine, except that I do lose the villager, which really shouldn't happen if I'm dodging properly. But again, this isn't an eco build, so we'll just say it's fine and keep moving on. It is good to confirm the position of the town center because you really don't want to be in a position where you delete your TC and then rebuild it out of range. That's the worst mistake you can probably make when going for a town center drop. But you don't want to lose vills either, so there's a balance to be struck there. I think I possibly could have built my TC right up next to my gold and still been in range of the enemy TC without walking so far here. And that might have been a little bit better, as it might have denied his wood collection, and that could have been really good for us. I find a hill here, so I'm pretty excited to build a TC on it, but hills can be a challenge as well, because if there's not enough space on that hill for your town center, you won't be able to drop a TC. And I try to find a space that's in within range, but it's not there. And P3 realizes what's happening, tries to get some houses down, but we go ahead and get the town center placed. P3 now is trying to fight some of our villagers, but it's really hard to vill war as someone's putting up a town center, because they can just run away with the villager that you attack, and then build with the ones that you're not attacking, and try to quick wallop them in. P1 isn't shooting down my town center here, which I don't entirely agree with necessarily, but it's an approach, and if you really want to deny a town center, it's probably the best play just to start shooting it down right when it comes up on you, and then going for a full wood economy and trying to repair to keep yours up as well. P1 comes in, but we quick wall him out, and we set up this little wood economy near us. I'm pleased that player 1 is kind of looking at attacking me and sending vills in my direction, just because it means he's not hitting my allies at this stage. I'll go ahead and send a villager out to see what P1's vills are doing over here as we continue to close off our base, and think about walling behind once we lose that piece of wood. And I think that player 1 is coming for a TC drop on me, but then I see this mining camp and I'm a little bit confused. I'm not sure why the Persian player is going for like 10 on stone. That feels pretty ridiculous, but we just go ahead and try to vill war a little bit, and we see what's happening. I start to realize that this might be a tower rush play instead, and I'm just doing my best to put all the low HP vills in the town center so that they'll heal up, and I'll try to use the high HP vills to go vill war while I create a transport just to break loose from this little trap P7 has set for me. I go for some vill fighting on P1, but he does a nice job to retreat up the hill, and I'm not really in a position here to do too much. But since player 1 is in feudal now, I'm quite worried about towers coming up, so I start to send some villagers out from my wood line to reinforce this position and try to take good fights. But player 1 just has way more vills in this area, so it's going to be hard for me to take good trades. And this villager is not able to path out of there. And this next villager is also in danger of dying, but he's at least being chased by multiple vills, and that's quite good for me. P4 is really heavily reinforcing this area now, and we're just doing our best to kite these villagers as far away as possible with new ones, and while pulling back the weak, low HP villagers. P1 starts to drop a tower here. I try to pull back the low HP Vill, but I misclick and pull back the wrong one here. But she does end up pretty low on HP and needs to retreat as well. You'll start to see me using this shift click micro where I'm just holding option and shift and right clicking all of these villagers so that when we do get kills, they'll start to go down. And once you've done this type of shift click micro, all you have to do is just pull back the weak villagers without a shift click to hard command them out of the fight. We're getting a pretty solid engagement here now, and this tower goes up for player 1. But I'm just clicking like a madman and doing my best to prevent him from hard containing this position. I do determine that it's probably too risky to stay in this area and keep fighting, because there's the tower in the area now, and player 1 has sent enough vills that if I take a long-term fight in that position, I don't really expect that I'll win it. Player 3 has been repairing this town center, and he's in the feudal age now, and it looks like he'll either go for feudal age army or just go for an FC play. This tower that P1's putting up is super dangerous for me, and I am not at all about this tower going up because it's going to restrict my mobility, and then his 2 towers will be able to protect each other. So at this point, I kind of make a hard commit to trying to knock this thing down, and we will probably be able to knock it down because P1 does not have the space to get repairers on the tower because we just have too many vills battering at it. And that's probably the worst position you can be in for player 1 now, because he's lost this tower, and now he only has 1 tower, So there's a solid chance that I'll be able to rush this one tower down and get underneath Murderhole's range, where he will not be able to attack my villagers with the tower. We'll just keep trying to micro back the weak villagers as much as possible here, and you can see the town center is just only full of low HP villagers. Because we've been drawing a 1v2 fight here, our teammate is the first one to arrive, and Bell has come in. He's hitting Castle Age, he's got these scouts, and he's getting tons of vills, and so are we against player 1. Player 3 and player 1 are both in terrible positions now, and we even have our teammate P2 adding some fires and protecting our fish in this region, which makes this play really easy and quite sustainable for us. Player 3 hasn't sent any army out yet, and disastrously it looks like I lost at least 3 villagers underneath player 1's town center. And as I'm not going to go for a TC drop on P1, and I don't want more towers coming forward on my face, I just go ahead and wall off here so his vills can't walk back in if he does decide to continue the vill war. Player 3's TC is getting pretty low, and I'm going to use my transport chip to get my villager as far away from this absolute cluster of docks on my team, and make sure that I'm not sharing fish with player 8 and player 2, because we're on the same team and really shouldn't be in a position where we're competing for resources if we're playing properly. I'll just use my villager to set up some outposts here because I want to protect Bell's siege and give him the ability to see any enemies coming in and get that siege back in time. I'll set up some outposts in the north as well, and just trying to make sure that we have a lot of visibility on the map. I'm not really in a position where I can produce any type of military or do a whole lot to help my team, so the only things that I can do are continue to TC war, continue to vill fight, and keep on pressuring the enemy and scouting the map. I let my team know that player 3's town center is quite low, and that we might be able to dive it, but player 3 does hit the Castle Age. But when I was playing this game in real time, I actually had no idea that he just hit Castle. And this is a total surprise to me. So as this town center is going down, I think it's just a mistake in that he's low on wood, and I go ahead and dive with all of my vills and start doing this absolutely idiotic shift Q micro again. I've seen Doubt talking about shift Q micro specifically with monks and how he just absolutely hates it. And it can definitely be a little bit frustrating to go up against because it's less assessments per minute oriented and more actions per minute oriented. The enemy knights come out here, and now we're just in a world of pain because this knight is all over our villagers, and there was no reason to delete our town center. I tell my team I didn't realize the enemy was Castle Age, and let them know that this is my B. If I hadn't deleted this town center, I would have at least held this forward against P3 a little bit better, maybe given Bell a position for his siege to come over, and made it so that player 3 would really have to answer me. But instead, P3 is now able to just run over and try to snipe the siege. I let Bell know that they're coming, but Bell is reinforcing this with a knight and a camel, and since we are sending a few vills over, we should easily be able to repair this against just one knight when there are 2 camels and a knight of our own in the area. Bell secures the position, and I'll just go ahead and leave some units here, as player 1 decides to delete his TC and go rebuild it elsewhere because he realizes that that area is just a total loss when it comes to producing new villagers. We get our second dock set up, and we'll just go ahead and keep clicking around the map in our transport ship, really using it for its logistical purposes of moving the villager much faster than he could move by walking. Now that there's really nowhere else for me to TC drop in this game, I just need to get up to the next stage, and because I have a lot of wood economy, and because my team has 1 water, I'm just thinking I should add docks as much as possible around the map, and expand out to these areas where we haven't collected fish yet. So I'll go to all these little peninsulas and drop a dock right there, while I try to secure my map with some house walls. When you're in a town center war, one of your main jobs is to pressure the enemy and make it so that they're going to be vulnerable to Castle Age or Feudal Age armies. Because I have also left myself in a very vulnerable position though, your worst nightmare when you're going for a TC drop is Castle Age army. Because just a couple of knights underneath my town center can be incredibly dangerous if they die at the TC and go heal. Bell finds great value there with his knights, and he's denying this town center for now, until players 3 knights make it back over as well, but he's at least given me the time to step forward, and set up some house walls to help keep this knight army out of my base. Now that I have these walls up, player 3 shouldn't be able to break through unless he gets to a decent siege mass, and our team is in a really strong position. If you look at the score, we're about 600 ahead. I would also say in general that when you're going for the town center drop, because deleting your town center is pretty bad for your score, if the score is tied when you're going for a TC war play, you're probably in a good position overall. Though that can of course be affected by things like scouting and other things that don't really have as much of an impact on the real state of the game, but might still inflate the score. We're just trying to keep our wall up, but the uphill knights are quite strong against house walls. We can't stonewall though, of course, because we're still in the Dark Age and we're just not in a position to do too much. Though the knights do back off of that house, and we're just happy to be in a position where we're not dying, because we're getting more fishing ships out, and we're starting to recover our eco. At this point in the game, player 3 is way ahead of me, but it's not really my job to deal with P3. I've helped to delay P1 and P3, and really the closer counterpart, whenever you're the guy who's deleting his DC and putting himself in a terrible position, your job is really just to get ahead of the position of the worst player on the enemy team. Or I should say, the player on the enemy team who's in the worst position. Right now, that player is me, and I'm just getting demolished by knights now that these have gotten in. When the enemy does get a knight army into your base and you're still in feudal age, your units just won't be able to deal with that. But we've set up a maze of walls here, so we'll just go ahead and continue to reinforce. And now these knights are kind of trapped out of their own base as Bell's camels tear him up. So even though it's extremely painful to have these units in my base, it's at least giving opportunities for my teammates to find value, and obviously Bell's camels will be able to deal with the knights in a way that I in the Dark Age cannot. We'll just relocate our fish across the map. And we notice that a fire ship is attacking our fish. So I just hide it behind Bell's dock and I just leave him this little present of a fire ship for him to kill. I don't really know what else to do with this, but it seems like a decent move, and I just decide that this is what I'm going to do with fire ships. I had totally forgotten that I'd done this, and it's a new approach for me, and it of course wouldn't work if this player realized he had fire ships in the area. But it's also weirdly effective, because the fire ships will never get an attack notification until we make ships out of that dock. So I kind of like that move. And I'll just go ahead and click up to Feudal Age at this stage. Our team's in an incredible position with 2 players around 4,000 score, and the enemy team just doesn't really seem to have boomed players who will be able to compete with Bell or Flash. P2 has a pretty awesome longsword army going on up here, and I didn't really see too much of what went on in his game, but it looks like he's having an awesome time. I just go ahead and send my transport back up toward the bulk of my fishing ships to keep adding docks in this area, so I can't really dock too much more in the south. We're on to gold now, and there's a huge Cuban Steppe Lancer army, and that's a pretty intimidating army, but we do have camels, so we should be okay overall. The Cumans are a really strong civ in the early Castle Age, but I really think their best power spike is from maybe minute 20 to 25 on Nomad, right after you hit that delayed fast castle after a 2TC boom. At this stage, around minute 32, they're not really in that powerful of a position anymore, and civs like the Chinese should be able to keep up with them and keep them from getting the value that they'd like to get. That power spike for the Cumans right when they hit Castle Age after a 2TC boom is incredibly strong, but at other phases of the game, they're just really not that oppressive. We're just continuing to add in mills and mining camps to try to get up to the next stage, and we'll drop a market and blacksmith. The fishing eco is our primary eco here, and as I'm not able to do too much in this game, I'm going to add just a whole bunch of fire ships. I can kill any remaining fires on the enemy team, because even my feudal fire galleys will take really good trades against Castle Age fire ships. Castle Age fires only kill feudal fire ships with 20% of their HP remaining. And the way you can look at that is you really just need 20% more feudal fire ships than the enemy has Castle Age fire ships to win the fight. It makes it really just not that hard to take fights against Castle Age fires. But your fire galleys would be hard countered by things like war galleys, the ranged ships, because they do so well against feudal units. I ask Red to fight by me here, and he'll go ahead and join me, and we'll just pop out our ships, tank some damage, and take the 3v1 against those fire ships so that we can start to regain control in this area. Because I have so many fishing ships, I'm just selling food as much as possible. I was in Dark Age forever, and there's really nothing that I can do with this food because I don't have extra TCs yet, and therefore I might as well just sell it for gold and get Navy out so that I can protect the fishing eco, and that will secure a long-term food economy for me once I'm able to get to the point in the game where I'm matting town centers. I switch on to stone here as I hit Castle Age because I want to get some Gbetos out. Gbetos are one of my favorite units in the game. They're the Malian unique unit. They're these ladies that carry and throw swords. They're incredibly fast moving, and they kind of behave like an archer unit, except that because they do melee damage, they just hit through armor much more easily, since most units are far more resistant to pierce damage than melee damage. So the Gbeto is one of the strongest units, and they're also extremely mobile. I call them the power ladies of AoE 2, and they are awesome. We just keep taking trades here, trying to clear up the water. We'll just hide our fire ship here behind the other one so that they don't lose HP, and we'll do our best here to control the area. I'm going ahead and getting my upgrades for my ships, and I'll go ahead and also get the trade upgrade. I'm not sure why I'm getting the trade upgrade. That looks like a misclick. Player 5 backs away, and I think he would have cleared that dock before the demo came out, and I'm pretty pleased that he did back away because I really need these docks for my fish to remain efficient, and even losing the villager in that area is pretty painful. But we aren't losing the fish, and that means that we're in a position to recover in this game, having 75 population after going for the town center war, and a higher score than player 1 means that we're feeling pretty good. Losing this town center is quite acceptable overall, and I'm just trying to get more villagers onto stone as I build more town centers and try to reboom in this area. We'll get gill nets now, and that's probably what I had meant to get when I got the trade upgrade, as I still don't have any trade units. We'll set up some fish traps now that we have gill nets, and I really, really enjoy fishing economy as it's faster overall than farms, and there's just something so satisfying about setting up your fish traps rather than deleting your docks and making sure that you're getting value from those units all the way throughout the game. And really that increasing value on fishing ships as you get them trapped is just so satisfying. We'll go ahead and wall it behind our town center as we realize that this position is going to be lost, and I'll try to switch this into an eco upgrades only TC, but I'm not really the best player at doing things like that because I'm not using control groups for my buildings in this game. I'm just using the select all town centers hotkey, so I won't do a perfect job. We have to DQ a couple of villagers there, and we'll try to make sure, again, that we aren't queuing in this area. We'll drop our first castle on this hill, and once our castles go up, we'll start to feel like we're in a really strong position. The Gbetos will leave us in a position where we can kill any enemy units that come in to raid us because they do so much damage, even against Imperial Age units. And they'll also be able to snipe trebuchets. Probably the best timing for Gbetos is not the timing that I'll be showing off in this game, but in the early Castle Age, if you have a Gbeto Mangonel army massed, it's one of the most unstoppable armies in the game. You would really need something like Janissaries or Conquistadors to match it. Player 5 is here with the Lancers in my base, but we're dropping double castle in defense, and Bell does an amazing job of getting some camels over to make it so that we're not going to get completely fried while trying to get this castle up. If we can protect our base with castles, we really will be in a fantastic position this game, but we just don't have the units out where we can protect our base on our own yet. We'd really like to have 12 to 20 Gbeto out in order to start taking really efficient trades against the enemy's cavalry armies. And with 2 castles up, it won't take too long to get there, so we are starting to feel pretty confident in our position, and we'll just keep trying to boom and protect our base with these Castle Age units, rather than thinking about the Imperial Age. The Axemen are out, and Axemen Gbeto is not a matchup you see every day, but I think the Gbeto are going to do just fine here. They're sort of just an elite unit in terms of being a ranged infantry, and Axemen are the other ranged infantry unit, other than chakram throwers, but Axemen are, for a reason, considered pretty bad, and they're just not a great unit. So I fully expect them to get completely fried by this Gbeto army if it comes down to them taking engagements. If you don't have really powerful range units, Gbeto just tend to fry your army. We keep getting some fishing traps built. And we'll also go ahead and add in some farms in this position. It's ideal not to have to go for too many farms on Nomad, but since we did lose the dock villager, we won't be able to build more docks to build fish traps around, and there will come a limit to that style of play. We're pretty housed here, so we'll just go ahead and build some houses in a kind of wall formation, but we're quite open on this side. And we're also feeling very confident in this game with the 1,000 score lead. We've gotten to the point where we feel confident raiding with our Gbeto now as well, and you'll see how much damage these 12 Gbeto can do. Player 3 is in the Imperial Age, and he's not actually taking large battles against any of the other players in this game. He'll go ahead and try to build a castle here, but he just has no chance with the Gbeto in, and they'll just start completely frying villagers in this area. Bell will start to attack player 3 in synchronization with our attack, and we'll delete as many of the gates as possible to allow his units to flood into the base. We let him know that we're in the east, and we'll go ahead and try to deny this next castle, and once more player 3 just has to back away. And the Franks really don't have great unit options for dealing with the Gbeto. The Malians are probably just better than them at this stage on Nomad. And in general on Nomad, the Malians are way better than the Franks. We continue to send more Gbeto into player 3's base and just control that area as much as possible. As we get housed, we'll try to use our wood to go ahead and just make more fish traps, because we know that we can't add fishing ships during this housing crisis. I don't know that I made any houses when I got housed here, but I finally seem to have woken up to that fact. So that's good. Not really sure why I thought something else was higher priority than not being housed anymore. But I did, and I don't agree with my decision there. The fish traps, though, are very satisfying still, and we'll just delete some naval units and keep building houses to try to get our population back in line. At 138 pop, we're starting to feel like we're in a really healthy position, and we're probably closer to 110 eco than the 80 that we're showing because of all the fishing ships. Player 3 really isn't able to come address these units, but we do see a Cavalier group come in, and as we try to take fights here, we'll see how strong the Gbeto are. The Cavalier have an uphill advantage right now, and I do want to get back and through my gate because I'm not just trying to take hardcore fights against these units out in the open field. I don't really need to do that, and I'd rather make sure that if I am taking a fight, it's in a relatively defensive position. The units get through, but we'll just go ahead and start throwing the knives at them, and we'll see these Gbeto absolutely rip apart the Frankish Imperial Cavalier. The Cav literally aren't even willing to engage, so they are able to dodge the damage for now. But P3 seems to understand the matchup and that his units just aren't very good in it. We get a little bit out of position here, but you can see that this group of 15 Gbeto is two-shotting Imperial Frank Cavalier, and they're just doing such a good job against this army. Player 3 will dive here, and he'll keep getting kills against the villagers, but killing me doesn't matter too much, and raiding my economy isn't going to have that bad of an effect if he's going to have to lose all of his Cavalier to do it, and ultimately accept that I'll get this castle up in the east of my base to offer full protection in this area. We just go ahead and keep chasing with the Gbeto and make sure that P3 won't be able to raid our teammate, while the remaining Gbeto clear up the Cavalier. We do still have 80 villagers, so we did kind of get reset there. And I don't know that I did a perfect job reacting to that raid or positioning my Gbeto, but you can still see that they just absolutely clap at the imp units. Our fish boom is nearly complete here, and I really don't enjoy having fishing ships that are doing like a poor job in post-imp in terms of eco-efficiency, so I make a point to get all of these trapped almost every game, and then I go ahead and delete any excess navy, unless I'm going to go for a cannon galleon play, where I'll be able to pressure long-term in that style. Player 3 shows up with 3 trebuchets, and he's pressuring my castle. I'll go ahead and get the masonry upgrade and repair this thing as much as possible. We have a hill, we have Gbeto, so we feel like we'll be able to snipe trebuchets if we need to. And these 30 Gbeto are just such powerful units that I'm not really feeling too concerned. We're getting the first building armor upgrade, as well as the hoardings upgrade in the castle, and once I can afford it, I'll get architecture, but we're getting chem first to afford bombard cannons for this fight. We just keep preparing as much as possible, and once hoardings comes in, we'll be in a really strong position. And I do click in with the Gbeto, but realizing that the enemy team is resigning, I'm not just going to throw away this beautiful army. We'll allow P3 to resign instead, and this game comes to an end. I really hope you enjoyed the first-person version of this cast. Sorry for clicking all over the map, and thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. This is Varus. Have a great day.